The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 31, employment and labor appropriation.
The Honorable Minister of Employment and Labor is invited to the podium.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members of this House, the ministers and deputy ministers present, senior managers of the department and its entities, ladies and gentlemen. Well, up front, the priorities of this department this year and during the 6th administration are on employment, the job creation and preservation, strengthening social dialogue for inclusive growth and
Honorable
transformation.
Chair. Honorable Chair. My apology, Honorable Minister, if the Minister can be requested to lower the mic a little bit towards his mouth. Thank you.
Yeah, and gallant move. Strengthening social dialogue for inclusive growth and transformation and decent work. That's health and safety and equity in the workplace. Two massive milestones in the form of the COIDA and employment equity amendments received presidential assent in April this year, fitting just ahead of May, the Workers' Month. On employment, with the expansion of the mandate in 2019 and the need to reconfigure as employment and labor, the department's focus has been strengthened in regard to job creation and retention, particularly the youth employment. This has been done against the backdrop of the difficult economic conditions, both nationally and internationally. Although the economy is showing early signs of rebound, the rate of recovery falls far short of what is required to create the sustainable job for the most vulnerable in the country, particularly youth, people with disabilities, and African women. The unemployment rate remains high at 32.7% as at Q4 of 2022. One glimmer of light, there was an increase of 86,000 in the number of the employed youth during the same period. From the side of the department, in order to contribute to the alleviation of unemployment, the UIF's labor activation program will continue to fund projects to maintain and create employment. The Temporary Employee Relief Scheme, normal TERS, administered through the CCMA, will continue to provide support to the distressed companies that seek to retain their employees. The Employability Enhancement Program is designed to integrate unemployed people back to or into the labor market. 240,000 people will be recruited by the end of the MTSF. The Business Turnaround and Recovery Program, implemented through the Productivity SA, enhances the productive capacity and operational efficiency of the enterprises in order to preserve jobs and minimize retrenchments. In 23-24 financial year, we've consistently achieved what is needed and what is necessary, and a number of new youth employment projects will be launched from June across all the provinces. We have ensured that 50% of all opportunities and subsequent employment goes to women and the youth. The department will closely monitor the implementation and performance of funded labor activation projects. The UIF is currently reviewing to further increase support for job creation. The UILF will continue to pursue the objectives of the 5 billion partnership with the Industrial Development Corporation in creating and retaining jobs. The fund supports startups and existing businesses. Productivity SA continues to promote employment growth and productivity through the competitiveness improvement services, which we call the CIS. Over the past 3 financial years, the CIS program provided support to SMMEs in both the formal and informal economy and consistently achieved the 100% performance on its planned targets. We are now beginning to see the positive results in the turnaround strategies and labor activation programs. 186 companies facing economic distress were supported, and these interventions resulted in nearly 16,000 jobs being retained. It is now mandatory for every business that receives assistance from the temporary employer-employee relief scheme to implement the business turnaround and recovery program. In this way, we have created synergy between our financial and non-financial instruments aimed at job preservation. It's important to flag that the reconfiguration of the department will strengthen the focus on improved productivity as key to growth and jobs. Productivity South Africa aims to support 37,250 enterprises, place 1,250 students and youth, contribute a total of 113,000 jobs over the 5 years period. Oiling the wheels of the labor market, the department will launch the upgraded Employment Services Systems of South Africa, which we call ESSA. This will make it easier for work seekers to access employment opportunities. The department will also offer more than 200 unemployed graduates an internship opportunity this year, extending the program that was started during the last financial year. These internship programs are offered by the departments across government at every level. Don't just look at this 200. It's across departments at every level. Supported employment enterprises, the SAE, as part of the legislative mandate, will increase employment of people with disabilities at its factories from the current 940 to 1,250 during the current year. The department will also provide subsidies to 9 organizations that will provide work opportunities to 1,041 workers with disabilities. Focusing on the unemployed youth, the department, in partnership with the Presidency and Government Technical Advisory Center, will contribute or will continue to support the development of the Pathway Management Network, bringing together multiple online networks of training and employment opportunities, also providing support to unemployed youth through the establishment of the Innovation Fund and support to the National Youth Service. On decent work policy and legislation, even as the department seeks to leverage its resources to support the job creation and retention, we do not lose sight of our traditional mandate to regulate the labor market and the labor relations with the objective of strengthening decent work and conditions conducive to a stable labor market and growth. Policy and legislative priorities during the administration include the National Labor Migration Policy. A draft has been developed by the department in line with the decisions of the Ministers of Employment and Labor in the SADC region. The draft policy recognizes the legitimate expectations of South Africans, at the same time aligned to the constitutional requirements, international law and international agreements. This draft National Labor Migration Policy and Supporting Employment Services Amendment Bill were approved by the Cabinet for public comment in February 2022. So the department appreciates all the organizations that submitted comments. So the policy has been revised accordingly. We are currently engaging NEDLEC stakeholders on the document. The policy forms part of the broader national employment policy intervention. The National Employment Policy, which is part of our legislative amendment. The department, in conjunction with the International Labour Organization, the ILO, has developed a draft national employment policy to address the country's persistent high unemployment or levels of unemployment to realize the following outcomes, amongst others: an inclusive employment growth trajectory for demand-side employment growth, harmonious and coordinated implementation of all policy activities and plans across government with a direct and indirect bearing on employment and creation, to significantly reduce the unemployment rate and increase the levels of the labor force participation by 2020. So the draft policy is guided by key policy interventions which are being shared during the consultation with the economic departments before it's presented at the economic cluster and cabinet. The national minimum wage was designed to reduce inequality in the national labor market and to establish a threshold for workers' remuneration. It is a living document, but has already benefited about 6 million workers. These workers are generally unorganized and vulnerable to exploitation. For the past 3 years, the national minimum wage level has been adjusted to maintain its value relative to the inflation. Furthermore, the minimum wage for the farm sector was equalized with the general national minimum wage rate in 2021. And the minimum wage in the domestic sector were equalized in 2022. The National Minimum Wage Commission monitors the impact of the national minimum wage on employment and wages. The large-scale job losses foretold by the naysayers has not happened because of the national minimum wage. For marginal employers who genuinely cannot pay, they can apply for the exemption. That is very true. The labor law amendments, and I've reported this to Parliament, that my department has tabled the labor law proposals to NEDLAC for negotiations. The desire of my department is to conclude these amendments as soon as possible, given the thrust of these amendments, which are intended to contribute to job creation and ease of doing business, especially for small businesses. But we are not going to get this thing that the labor market in South Africa is rigid, because there's nothing like that in terms of research, even internationally. As part of the routine activities to strengthen decent work, for 2021, my department extended 24 collective agreements to non-parties covering 1.25 million employees in different sectors. These agreements cover wages, social security benefits, working conditions, improving livelihood of vulnerable employees and their families. Amendments to the employment equity, which some hated most, have received presidential assent. Self-regulation for 25 years by the employers has not succeeded in significantly shifting the demographic of the employment, particularly in the higher echelons of business, to the cost of the Africans, coloreds, people living with disabilities. But we see people continuing to defend the apartheid benefits. The amendment provide for the minister, in consultation with the stakeholders, and underline, in consultation with stakeholders, to set sectoral targets and ensure that non-compliant businesses will not do business.
Chairperson,
We don't know whether we are frozen or what. We can't hear anything.
There's no sound.
Honorable Chairperson, sorry to intervene.
Yes, Honorable
There seems
Singh.
to be no sound from the committee room.
Indeed, Presiding Officer, there is no sound at all. We lost Minister Nxi. Please attend to that.
We will, ICT will attend to that.
Should I continue, sir?
I doubt.
We can hear now. We can hear now.
We can hear you now.
Yes, we can.
We can hear, Chair.
Minister, you can continue.
No, but ibambile ke la mizuzu yami. On equal opportunity in the labor market, which is at the core of the decent work and work transformation or work-based transformation. The Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill is due for completion by September 2023 for engagement with NETLEC. We trust that proposed steep fines will curb the high levels of non-compliance by some employers. Remember, the object here is to reduce workplace accidents and diseases, which in turn also increases productivity, which is necessary for economic growth. The President assented to COIDA, the compensation for injuries, compensation for occupational injuries and diseases amendment bill on the 7th of April 2023. The benefits include the inclusion of the domestic workers in the category of employees entitled to occupational injury benefits, the introduction of rehabilitation and return to the work programs to support the reintegration of injured workers with disabilities into the labor market, to enable the compensation fund to obtain the requisite resources for inspections of the workplaces and to develop preventative programs with employers that will contribute to safer workplaces and reduce the number of injuries. On social dialogue, the department and its entities led by NETLEC are closely, are also charged with strengthening the social dialogue. And last year, this mandate focused on the establishment of the new social compact. Much was learned from this process, with the focus now on developing specific compacts by economic sector, some of which have been successfully concluded. And these efforts are now focused on defined priority areas, currently energy, transport, and crime. NETLEC's achievement in 2022-23 include the incorporation of the Presidential Climate Commission, the PCC, as a program under NETLEC. The NETLEC's, convened 22 dialogue sessions focusing on issues such as the government budget, planning, electricity generation, the occupational diseases in the mines and the Works Act, the public employment schemes and food distribution to vulnerable groups and communities. NETLEC reports were concluded on 10 bills and policies. And the new rapid response team focusing on the cost of living increases was set up. NETLEC planned activities in 2023-24, which include progress with the labor law reforms, which focus on improving the effectiveness of the labor laws, as well as extending them to atypical workers and the emerging issues such as the future of work, remote work, and just transition. Inspection and enforcement, it is all very well to devise good policies and laws, but they have to be implemented and enforced. The department's inspection and enforcement services, that is labor inspectors, have been expanded and strengthened in the recent years, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in over 100,000 health and safety inspections in the last year. In relation to the employment equity laws, our inspectors are currently focused on the JSE listed companies to ensure compliance. Comply. For 2022-23, we referred 238 companies to court for failure to comply. And we have said the banking sector, which refuses to transform. The national roving teams are conducting blitz programs focused on high risk and problematic sectors to ensure compliance with the national minimum wage and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. During the last year, the department carried out over 300,000 inspections, seeking to promote compliance, fair labor practice, decent work, and safe workplace. The IES also seeks to realize the Durban call to action to combat child labor and to advance the ILO recommendation 204, which amongst others seeks to improve the rights and conditions of workers in the informal sector. The issue of access and service, good legislation and plans can also be compromised by inadequate access and service. Historically, this and systemic challenges within the two funds, that is compensation fund and the UIF, are being addressed. Relevant professional capacity has been insourced to strengthen the programs to tackle the negative audit findings and for more fundamental and thoroughgoing review of the systems architecture across the funds. These interventions will be strengthened during the current year. Despite the challenges, the funds continue to provide critical social security protection to workers through the UIF and the compensation fund, which paid benefits of the 4 billion in 2022-23 financial year. The benefit consists of the monthly pension, salaries, funeral benefits, and medical expenses. The compensation fund has developed a tertiary bursary program, which is meant for the dependents of the permanently and deceased injured workers. So the UIF will strengthen monitoring of its investment with the Public Investment Corporation to ensure due diligence and fair returns. We are also pleased to report significant progress in recovering COVID-19 terrorist funds wrongly or fraudulently paid. The SIU Asset Forfeiture Unit, the President's Fusion Center working with the UIF, Follow the Money program, have recovered 61 million as at the 31st of March. There have been 60 arrests with 12 individuals, including a Ms. Muremi sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, and Mr. LP Kumete sentenced to 20 years. A large number of additional numbers are still under investigation. The law is coming. Finally, I need to mention South Africa's role as the presidency of BRICS during the current year. The second BRICS Employment Working Group Technical Group is meeting to prepare the BRICS Summit to be hosted in South Africa in Durban later this year. The technical group is focusing, amongst others, on the relationship between productivity and employment. Let me take this opportunity in closing to thank the Deputy Minister, the DG, and the team for their commitment to hard work. What we are not going to do is to deny our weaknesses, deep systemic problems of the two funds, but we are on the way in addressing them, and we have said it openly. So the budget allocation to the department is $1,092,000,000. That's 1,092,225,000 rand. And obviously, I move the budget vote 31. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Junja is the next speaker.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister, the ministers that are in the House, the members of the August House, our guests, nabasebenzi baseMzantsi Afrika ngokuphelele. We are gathered here today to discuss the committee observations for the Department of Employment and Labour vote. The report clearly shows that while there has been gains in the creation of jobs, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done to address unemployment in our country. The committee observes that quarterly labor force survey for Q4 2022 indicated that 169 jobs were gained between Q3 and Q4, when the total number of persons employed at 15.9 million in Q4. However, the number of unemployed persons increased by 28,000 to 7.8 million in Q4 of 2022. Thus, the official unemployment rate decreased by 2% from 32.9 in quarter 3 of 2022, 32.7 in and 22.7 in quarter 4 of 2022. The committee acknowledged the slight decrease in the unemployment rate, but cannot ignore the fact that the number of unemployed persons is still staggeringly high. Moving on to the budget allocation of the department, the committee notes that the budget has decreased from 4.1 billion in 2022-23 to 4 billion in 2023-24 financial year. The decrease in the total budget resulted from the decrease in the budget for the program of administration and labor policy and industrial relation programs. The administration budget decreased from 1.1 billion 2022-23 to 1 billion in 2023-24, and the budget for labor policy and industrial relations decreased from 1.37 billion to 1.34 billion. In terms of economic classification, the budget for current payments decreased from 2.2 million in 2022-23 to 2.1 billion 2023-24. Mhlali ngaphambili, le ngxoxo-mpikiswano yethu namhlanje ingxoxo-mpikiswano esithi masithi sinikele kubasebenzi beli lizwe. Kuba kaloku siyenza emva kokuba besikhe savuyisana nemini yabo ekuthiwa yi-May Day, kodwa sivela kakhona na ekubonini kwethu nokuvuyisana nokuba sikhululekile. Mabazi abasebenzi base-South Africa into yokuba abo abafuna into yokokuba imithetho abathi imithetho yase-South Africa ingqongqo aba balapha ngasekunene kum. Imbanga into batsho into yokuba bafuna into yoba abasebenzi mabaphinde babuyele kwaFaro. Under the apartheid, the labor market was not free for black workers and regulated through the hated past system, which was a violation of basic human rights. Uba uzange ube ngumsebenzi, uba uzange ube phansi kwentamo elikhuni, you would not understand why it is important that workers in this country must understand and appreciate that this government, led by the African National Congress, has ensured that regulations are then being changed. We have got workers, men and women, who perished fighting for the rights and fighting for just laws which are to govern the labor space. And among those, if I can quickly relate, is that the Labor Relations Act of 1995, the basic conditions of employment, the Employment Equity Act of 1998, the Occupation Health and Safety, the Employment Service of 2014, and the National Minimum Wage. Bayakhala emphathiswa xa uthetha ngayo kuba kaloku baqhele into ba abantu bakuthi babenze izixaka. Kodwa ke masibulele into yokuba le komiti nelisebe kuye kwapaswa umthetho othi nabasebenzi abaphangela emakhitshini, umongameli uye wasayina ngomhla ku-April ngo-2023, wasayina into yokuba nabo mabaziwe ifakwe ibe semthethweni kuba kaloku kukho umama owatshona edamini lokuqubha endlwini yomlungu. Ukuba yayingazange yenzeke loo nto ibuhlungu kangaka, ngesingakhange babe abasebenzi abasiphangalelayo sisonke kule ndlu bayakwazi into yokuba babe ngoku nabo bayawafumana amalungelo. We must on this occasion acknowledge the very important role played by the ANC government through the minister and the department supported workers through TELS during the COVID-19 pandemic to preserve jobs and support people. This is a caring government which is sensitive to the needs of the people. Kuba kaloku nakaloku nje elisebe siyazi into yokuba liyayilandela imali, which is follow the money. Iinkampani zabahlobo babo abangasekunene kum baye babhale bathi banabasebenzi abanga bafumane imali bangaze bayise ebantwini. Siyabacela ke ngoku abasebenzi kunye neenkokheli zabasebenzi into yoba maziyijonge loo nto, zibaxelele le nto ithi ngesilungu you name and shame. The ANC government has since the inception of democracy, supported a social compact between business, labor, and government through NETLEC. This has enabled the peaceful development of the country in the comparison of the conflict of during apartheid system. The social compact is also proving to be beneficial to benefit in relation to the implementation of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, which is deep for its success on the work of all the social partners. Phambi kokuba ndiphelelwe lixesha mhlali ngaphambili manditsho kuwe mphathiswa into yokuba siyikomiti asixolanga inhliziyo zethu ziligazi ngoba ezi company ezi entities ezimbini ezinye ekuthiwa eyokuqala ekuthiwa i-UIF Unemployment Insurance Fund kunye ne-Compensation Fund ezingakhange zithi thaca ingxelo yazo isenza ke leyo into yokuba singaphatheki kakuhle. Siyakucela ke siyakunyanzelisa ukusukela namhlanje within 30 days from today sizawuphinda sikubize uzosixelela into yokuba la komiti ubuyisekile eyoba makukhangele uba kwenzeka ntoni kwi-compensation fund imanxa yiphi yaye yintoni eyingxuba kaxaka kuba ngabantu bethu abasokolayo kuba abahlobo babo ekuthiwa zii-third parties ngabo abantu abakhalayo bayakhala kuba kaloku itepi yavalwa. Kodwa noxa itepi ivalwa nje siyaqonda into yoba zikhona noko izinto ezingahambi kakuhle. Siyicelela uxolo ke loo nto kubantu boMzantsi Afrika ukuba noko lona urhulumente noxa kuthiwa akakhathali noxa befuna ukuba yimbumba yokokuba basisuse ekuhlaleni zikhona izinto esizenzayo esisezawuzenza esiqinisekileyo into yokokuba abantu bakuthi bazawufumana inkululeko yasemsebenzini yinkululeko ebalulekileyo kakhulu. Program Speaker, mhlali ngaphambili, it is also critical to note that the departmental program 2 of inspection and enforcement service, which is very important, ibalulekile ngantoni lento yalamajoni ekufuneke lamandoda nalamankazana angena ephuma ekhangela into kokuba abaqeshi imithetho bayayilandelana. Siyayazi into yoba imali ayikho, siyayazi into yoba mbalwa, kodwa siyabacela abasebenzi neenkokeli zabo ukuba mababe liliso nendlebe ukuba kwenzeka ntoni nemsebenzi. Uyabona ke umuntu ongazange ngaphangeli akazuyazi lento ndithetha ngayo. Uzawuhleka xa kuthiwa hayi imali itheni kuba kaloku akazange abe phantsi kwestrofu. Therefore, the inspection and enforcement service need to address illegal labor practices in the country which disadvantage workers. Sizawuthi ke ngexesha elifanelekileyo njengoba besikhe saphuma sabheka kwilizwe lingaphandle eKenya sithi chatha apha iripoti ebonisayo into kokuba yintoni na esiyibonileyo yintoni na esicimba kufuneka yenziwe. Siyavuya ke xa ndikumamele uthi niza kuza apha kuthi nizokusixelela into yokuba ikanjani na niphina nalento kuthiwa zii-regulations ekufuneka sizijongile kuba kaloku abantu bakuthi mabangavumi masingavumi singama-Afrika singavumi siyi-Afrika into yokuba sohlulwe ngabantu abasafuna into yokuba masihlupheke ebasafuna into yokuba umuntu omnyama makabe sisicaka. Yiyo loo nto ngexesha elalibalulekile le-UDF kwakudla ngokuthiwa united we stand, divided we will fall. And therefore ibalulekile ke loo nto kubasebenzi into yokuba bayiqonde loo nto. The role and the contribution of the entities which the report of the department such as Unemployment Insurance Fund and Compensation Fund requires a matter of urgency to improve the cooperation. Njengoba besenditshilo ke mphathiswa, the annual report plans are clearly detailed in the report and performance of the department and be showed through enhanced oversight by the committee. Asizukucenga mntu, i-transformation yona inguqu into esiza kuyenza. Sa blackmailwa ngokutsho kwamakhumsha Asizukuvuma into yoba sibe siphinde sibuyele kwindawo esisuka kuyo okhokho bethu ababethe bona banyamezela. Sifundile ke thina, izawubaluleka ke loo nto into yoba when we conduct our oversight this year towards the end of the term, we are not apologetic in terms of the transformation. Kuba kaloku, yes, in all companies, if you can check who is top in the hierarchy of private sector, it's white males. White males. Ndiyayigxininisa le nto. Amakhosikazi noba aleliphi na ibala aza ngezantsi kube ngakuwesi abantu abakhubezekileyo. Sithi ke ngoku xa sisuka apha nokokokuba siyathanda nokuba asithandi, leyo into esizawuyenza.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
The ANC support the budget for 31.
The Honorable Kado.
Honourable Chairperson, the ANC has unleashed an avalanche of unemployment in South Africa. It threatens to reduce our country to rubble. But instead of mitigating the disaster or preventing further rockfalls, the ruling party only deepens the destruction. Hence its predisposition to policies and laws like the Employment Equity Amendment Act that will trigger a deluge of disinvestment and expedite the nation's economic collapse. South Africa sits at the global pinnacle of joblessness, atop a steep slope of despair down which people's dreams and livelihoods come crashing. Currently, there are over 11 million South Africans without a job, 7.75 million people, according to the strict definition of unemployment used by Statistics South Africa, and a further 3.36 million discouraged job seekers in accordance with the expanded definition. That makes for an unemployment rate of 32.7% or 42.6% if you include people who have given up looking for work. Among the youth, the unemployment rate approaches alarming levels of almost 70%. The so-called Party of Liberation hastens our subsidence. In ANC-run provinces and municipalities, service delivery has caved in. Everywhere the ANC governs, the physical environment lies in ruins. The upshot is fewer jobs and more crime. The ANC cannot keep the lights on. Frequently, it cannot keep water flowing from the taps. And every bit of infrastructure touched by the ANC's cadres signals the kiss of death. The consequence is a vicious cycle of disinvestment, decline, and job shedding. Life becomes impossible for employers, businesses shut up shop, and communities are starved of the means to make a living. The ANC's criminality, corruption, and incompetence have caused the state to fail. And state failure has brought everything else tumbling down. It has accelerated the avalanche of poverty and unemployment. The main reason that more than 11 million South Africans do not have a job is because the ANC has failed to make this country a viable place in which to operate a business and employ workers. No wonder the DA-run Western Cape, the one province where government actually works and where services are delivered to residents, has the lowest unemployment rate by far. In the fourth quarter of 2022, the Western Cape accounted for 167,000 of the 169,000 jobs created nationally since the previous quarter, a proportion of 99%. Nationally, the government's constitutional sins of commission and omission have edged us into freefall, from the crony enrichment scheme of black economic empowerment, through attacks on property rights, to chronic underinvestment in energy infrastructure that has resulted in rolling blackouts. And now we have the Employment Equity Amendment Act, recently signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa. It is another destructive intervention, another boulder dropped upon the populace, which permits the Minister of Employment and Labour to set racial employment targets for national economic sectors. The law confers upon the Minister powers which are completely incompatible with the principles of a market-driven economy. Meanwhile, the Department of Employment and Labour and its entities are working suboptimally or not at all. The Unemployment Insurance Fund and the Compensation Fund could not even get it together to table their annual performance plans this year. That is a blight on the budget process, and it makes a mockery of the Portfolio Committee's labours. Both funds are dysfunctional and unaccountable. Tens of thousands of South Africans are still waiting for the UIF to pay them their unemployment insurance claims. Mothers cannot buy nappies for their babies, and parents cannot put food on the table because the UIF cannot beat its backlogs. Instead, the fund dawdles, delays, and denies, all the while waging a war of attrition on the unemployed. The UIF's functions should be outsourced to the South African Revenue Service, while private sector players should step into the void created by the Compensation Fund's pathological inability to process injured workers' claims. As for NEDLAC, we are told that a governance task team has reviewed the Council's founding documents with a view to refining its mandate. Separately, we are given to understand that there is a labour law reforms task team operating under NEDLAC's auspices. But of their proposals and outputs, the Portfolio Committee knows frustratingly little. Just about the only departmental entity that provides bang for its buck and accounts appropriately is the CCMA, but in real terms, that budgetary buck has been scaled back. The department's overall budget amounts to 4.1 billion rand, but very little of that goes towards stimulating job creation in the private sector. In 2023-2024, the department's Programme 4, Labour Policy and Industrial Relations, will be allocated 1.37 billion rand, or a third of the budget. We should be channeling those funds into an overhaul of our rigid labour market regime, Minister. Only the private sector can create jobs at scale and rapidly absorb predominantly low-skilled workers into the economy. This means we need to unleash the private sector. We must reform labour regulations, cut red tape, and scrap the automatic extension of collective bargaining council agreements. We must delete from our statute books overzealous acts of social engineering like the Employment Equity Amendment Act, which destroy jobs. We must empower individual economic sectors to set their own minimum wages and offer tax exemptions to small businesses to help them absorb the cost of minimum wages. It is time for the DA to rebuild after the ANC's avalanche of unemployment and forestall further landslides.
Honourable Carter.
Roll on next
Thank you very
year's
much.
elections.
Time is up. The Honourable Mkonto.
Ngiyabonga lithuba mhlali ngaphambili ngibingelele kumkhuti wemasotsha emnotho eSouth Africa evenikati lase-Afrika nangesheya kwetilwandle Julius Malema onke emasotsha emnotho lakhona emhlabeni wonke jikelele. House Chairperson, this year marks a very important milestone in the politics of South Africa and the working class struggle. This year marks 10 years since the formation of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the only radical and militant economic emancipation movement that brings together progressive forces, including workers' movement, under one strategic mission of economic freedom in our lifetime. This year marks 10 years of unbroken commitment made to the fallen heroes of Marikana, whose massacre inspired the formation of this revolutionary movement. This year marks 10 years of unbroken commitment to a fight for a national minimum wage equal to a living wage. This year marks 10 years of defending workers from racist establishments that continue to exploit domestic workers, security guards, gardeners, artisans, drivers, nurses, mine workers, and many other workers, including those in the financial sector. As we move forward, the celebration to mark the 10-year anniversary, the Festival of the Poor and Working Class, President and Commander-in-Chief, President Julius Malema, launched a plea to all progressive forces to donate and contribute to the revolution. Chairperson, let me now turn to the budget vote debate on employment and labor. When Mr. Ramaphosa renamed the Ministry to Employment and Labor in 2019, it was not clear how this change will benefit more than 11 million unemployed people in this country. The EFF was the only political party that stood firm and rejected the name change as nothing but media cosmetics. This was confirmed when Mr. Ramaphosa said it is not his responsibility to create jobs. This was said by a president of a country whose unemployment is the highest in the world. This is a proper demonstration of ideological confusion and neo-colonial state that we are today. Let's look at the state of the department and its entities. The whole budget of this department prioritizes administration that does not benefit workers and those unemployed. There is no adequate increase in the budget of inspection and enforcement services. This is despite the fact that workers are exploited daily and work in terrible conditions. Kusanza kuphasiswa i-Employment Equity Amendment Act. Uyatibuta ukuthi njengoba i-budget leconzene nema-labor inspectors ikhushulwa kancane ayawusebenta kanjani abe ede ngisho ma-tools of trade. Minister, we asked you in September last year when you were going to fill labor inspector vacant posts. You did not give us a straightforward answer. Even the inspectors that are there do not have tools of their trade. The collapse of the unemployment fund, UIF, and the compensation fund is shocking, and it is workers who are suffering today. Bantu labalimala emisebentini, labatfola tifo emisebentini, bahleli emakhaya balambile ngoba i-compensation fund ayikhoni kubancedza, ayikhoni neku-accounta kuthi imali tayo itihambisa njani. We do not know what is happening in these two entities because they failed to table their 2022-23 expenditure reports and their 23-24 annual performance plans. But we must approve their budget as Parliament. We want you, Minister, that when we were dealing with the compensation for occupational injuries and disease amendment bill, which was signed into law last month, that the close relationship between the DG and the Commissioner of the Compensation Fund is not assisting. We went as far as exposing serious self-interest in the manner in which the legislation you introduced was drafted so that tomorrow it can benefit certain people and expose the corruption that is happening today. Lastly, Chairperson, the supported employment enterprises that create employment for people living with disabilities have not received preferential procurement status, and there is no justification for why is it taking so long. Minister uhlala afaka ma-apologies athi uya ku-executive meeting. Kuthi uyomela bani kuma-executive meeting asati ngoba solo ma-SEEs awakayitholi lento lekufuneka yoyidiscussa nalabanye bominister kuthi kube ne-preferential procurement kulama SEEs ngoba if lokho kungenteki kusho ukuthi lama SEEs atawufa bantu labaphila nekukhubateka batatithola bangenamisebenzi. Siyakucela Minister nawuya ema-meetingini ye-executive umele le department ngoba sathi ukuthi uxoxani le. It is high time that Parliament stops this practice of taking old reports and brushing them up, then tabling them as though they are new when we are saying the same thing. The EFF will not support a budget that does not benefit the working class and the unemployment. We reject the proposed budget for employment and labor. Ngiyabonga mhlali ngaphambili.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Sangwa, the next speaker.
and mina ngu-IFP. Honorable House Chair, according to the World Economic Forum, South Africa is projected to see the highest jobless rate globally. As the most industrialized nation on the Africa continent, unemployment is estimated to the 35.6% in 2023. Over 1 in 3 persons in the country will be unemployed, the highest in the world. With such discriminated outlook for our country economic mixed with the rampant corruption and mob control over our power utility, South Africa is for one of the worst economic period since democracy. Joblessness in South Africa has become the pandemic of our economic development with very little hope in sight. Our constitutional rights are paid more lip service with such high unemployment rate, as assessing these rights is only fully realized when people have access to resources and money. Honorable Speaker, we find ourselves in a predicament where we require a strong government to shield the most vulnerable from starvation. Yet it is same government that has brought us into a period of gross financial mismanagement, misconduct, misappropriation of fund, and outright corruption. As a result, we lack large-scale investor confidence in our big industry, which could bring about job creation. Our small business can barely kept afloat with the current cost of doing business due to load shedding. It is futile for minister to parade and state a few examples of new businesses that are opened in South Africa, as it is simply not enough to address the unemployment rate. Minister, kuyasidabukisa thina ukuthi abantu bakithi bahleli abasebenzi nenkece azikho, kodwa ilokhu ukhulunywa nje, nabalimalayo abakhokhelwa. Ngiwufakazi walokho ukuthi ngisho abalimala engozini abakaze bayithole namanje inkece yabo. Manje lo UIF uyasikhalisa kakhulu thina njengabahlali balapha eSouth Africa ukuthi kanti koze kube nini la thina siyothi sikhululekile ngokuphelele, sithola izinto ngokuphelele, sikuthola konke ngokuphelele. Kodwa ke i-IFP iyayichasa le budget.
Siyabonga Mhlonishwa. The Honorable Turner.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, and through you, Honorable Minister, you've sketched a very positive picture here today, and credit must be given where it's due. But let's not beat around the bush. We are facing an unprecedented unemployment crisis. We've been facing one for years, and it's getting worse. We have a department with entities, with the exception of one, that are unable to deliver on its mandate. The unemployment rate is 42.6%, and let's not fool ourselves by excluding discouraged work seekers. More than 11 million South Africans who are able to work are excluded from the labour market, and the Department of Labour and its entities has fallen short of turning this situation around and supporting workers in need. Daar is verskeie redes waarom die Departement van Arbeid bydra tot die werkloosheidskrisis in Suid-Afrika, eerder as om by te dra tot die oplossing daarvan. Die achtbare minister is gou om met my te verskil wanneer ek verwys na die beperking wat striemende en selfs drakoniese arbeidswetgewing op die privaat sektor se werkskepingsvermoë plaas. Daar word dan gewoonlik agter die raskaart geskuil met uitsprake soos dat die onreg van die verlede terstond en met oortuiging nou, 30 jaar later, deur hierdie regering reggestel sal word. Maar agbare voorsitter, een onreg kan nie deur 'n ander onreg reggestel word nie. Die gevolg daarvan is die werkloosheidskrisis waarmee ons nou sit. In plaas daarvan om ekonomiese welvaart te skep, dwing hierdie regering gefaalde politieke ideologieë op die werklike werkskeppers van hierdie land af, en des te meer met die oog op volgende jaar se verkiesing. Die wysigingswet op billike indiensname is die nuutste voorbeeld van sosiale ingenieurswese en omgekeerde apartheid. Waarom leer die ANC nie uit die geskiedenis nie? Hierdie ondeurdagte, sinnelose wetgewing wat aan 'n minister die mag gee om aan privaat besighede voor te skryf wie hulle waar moet aanstel, is nie net absurd nie, maar dit is ongrondwetlik. En die VF+ het sy stem by talle ander gevoeg wat hierdie wetgewing in die hof gaan aanveg. Voorsitter, ek kom terug na die entiteite van die departement. The Compensation Fund, an entity that manages billions of rands, and one that is currently in a financial turnaround process because of, among other reasons, its failure to submit statements to the AG for audit purposes for the past 11+ years, has not submitted an annual performance plan for oversight by this committee either. Neither has the Unemployment Insurance Fund. I'm glad to hear from the Minister that success from turnaround strategies can apparently be seen, but you will excuse me, Minister, if I don't take your word for it. Where are the APPs? Where is the accountability? Where is the management of this department? Why are these two largest entities allowed to get away with this? Where are you, Minister? I'm glad to hear you, Minister, acknowledge the problems with these funds, but there's also a large question mark hanging over the UIF and its decision to push through a payment of 5 billion rand to a questionable company for a questionable project that even the PIC did not feel comfortable with. And when the minister is questioned about this, his timelines don't quite match up. So it makes one wonder, how sincere is this acknowledgement really? Productivity SA, it seems, is not so productive itself. The entity has been trying to get a single source of funding for the past 4 years with the same observation and recommendation made by this committee year in and year out. Yet it seems there has been no movement in this regard. The same is true for supported employment enterprises, and I think the Honourable Committee Chair mentioned this as well. Year after year, the committee recommends that National Treasury is engaged to develop and implement a preferential procurement policy for government departments to procure from SEE programs. But the same recommendation is made this year again with no clear progress in the matter. The only truly functioning entity of the Department of Labour is the CCMA, but a serious lack of funding and resources is threatening to cut the only thin line of credibility that this department has left. Voorsitter, ek het begin deur te sê dat dit nie sal help om mooi broodjies te bak nie. Ons is midde in 'n werkloosheidskrisis en ons sal nie hierdie krisis die hoof bied met 'n departement en 'n minister wat die krisis ontken ter wille van politieke redes nie. Die realiteit staar ons in die gesig. Suid-Afrikaners is desperaat om vir hulle self en hulle gesinne te sorg, maar die regering kies die ANC elke keer bo die mense van die land en dit gaan julle duur te staan kom. Ek dankie.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable the Deputy Minister of Employment and Labour. You're the next speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson and members of this august House, our Minister, Date Ngesi, and all those ministers and deputy ministers who might be watching us on virtual platform, the Honourable Chair of the Portfolio Committee and members of the Portfolio Committee present in this debate, the Director General of our department, DDGs and senior management of this department, heads of entities, all our invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all. Allow me, Honorable Chairperson, in line with the input delivered by the Minister on policy and interventions, just to put a few touch points into perspective for the purpose of service delivery clarifications, which are aligned with this budget vote. Honorable members, today marks almost a year that the Department of Employment and Labor hosted the 5th Global Conference on the Elimination of Child Labor that took place around May in Durban 2022. As a signatory to the ILO, South Africa is in the process of implementing some measures around recommendations 204 of 2015, which actually propagates for formalization of the informal economy through various interventions, such as facilitating access to social security of the people that are employed in the informal economy itself. I wish to remind members that those who touched down on our borders last year for the global conference on the elimination of child labor trusted us with a very important mandate that South Africa must take the lead in the total realization of the elimination of child labor by 2025. And this also includes the informal economy. Honorable members, we meet again just on the eve of the second employment working group technical meeting that is preparing for the BRICS summit to be hosted yet again in South Africa in Durban around August of this year of 2023. We are aware of the rising appetite levels and the international interest in this summit due to the state of the geopolitical landscape and the developments around the role of South Africa in the world. We look forward as the Department of Employment and Labor with great anticipation to yet another successful event. Honorable members, today we come here to this house very proud to showcase and demonstrate our achievements. We do this collectively in the form of government one plan approach, which is your district development model. One collaborative effort that I wish to single out is our collaboration with the Departments of Health, the Departments of Mineral Resources and Energy on the ex-mine workers' compensation. This program continues to dignify the lives and families of those who were robbed of their benefits after sacrificing their whole lives in the mines. We have managed to establish a one-stop service point between the three departments to assist the ex-mine workers and their beneficiaries. Amongst others, the services provided entails tracking and tracing of ex-mine workers, lodging of complaints at the service sites, provision of medical assessments, retrieval of health records, and many other support services. This is what a true caring government of the people does. Take care of the disenfranchised, less fortunate, the poor, and the vulnerable in society. This is the business of this government, among others, to serve our people. Very often, Honorable Chairperson, we are criticized for the number of inspections conducted. The department is on the verge of achieving a historic 300,000 mark in terms of the number of inspections conducted in a financial year. And this is a commendable and unprecedented milestone which needs to be applauded, honorable members. The trend of non-compliance on employment equity Act has a potential to undermine the transformation agenda of the country. And I'm sure we would know that during the third quarter of 2022-2023 financial year, only 46% of over 3,000 workplaces visited to test their compliance with the Employment Equity Act were found to be compliant. 238 workplaces were referred to court for failure to comply. It is disheartening, honorable members, to still observe that some workplaces still seem to be keen to pay fines rather than comply with the law. And I'm sure due to through the new amendment, this will soon be a thing of the past. We are, however, encouraged by a handful of companies that elected to settle out of court by complying with solutions that will improve workplaces. I must say the reconfiguration of the department, honorable members, is meant to address the employment mandate of the department to respond in the most effective way in creating a conducive environment for employment creation. The department is implementing a project to reconfigure and unbundle the UIF and the compensation front funds from the department to allow them to operate as a fully fledged, actually, Schedule 3A entities. This project commenced in the first quarter of 2023-2024, and it is estimated to be completed within a period of 24 months. When the time is right, honorable members, and as soon as the process is ratified by all the oversight parliamentary committees, we will give details of the Department of Employment and Labor's reconfiguration process and update. We will, honorable members, continue to engage all departments to utilize our ESSA system for all government recruitment programs. To this end, the upgraded version of the new ESSA applications will be launched during the second quarter, and this will increase our capacity to expand opportunities for work seekers. Honorable Chairperson, for the 2021-22 financial year, the department has extended 24 collective agreements to non-parties covering 1,245,030 employees in different sectors. And these agreements ranges from wage increments, social security benefits, and conditions of employment, collective agreements, among others. Extension of these collective agreements to non-parties means improving the livelihoods of vulnerable employees and their families by improving their wages and extending social security benefits that automatically would have excluded them without the extension of these agreements. These are commendable policy interventions that we continue to make in the lives of our people. We know that the dissent on these government interventions by some amongst us here in this house, especially during this period, when we are approaching the national general elections, is very often a populist appeal for the ballot. In good and in bad times, our people will always remember those who were on their side. They will remember the next year in 2024 national general elections, those who were on their side. Despite all the challenges at the compensation fund during 2022-23 financial year, honorable members, the compensation fund paid benefits to the total amount of 4 billion rands. And these funds were spent on the monthly benefits, medical invoices, funding of the injured workers' rehabilitation, reskilling and reintegration, as well as funding bursaries to youth, especially those who are dependents to the injured workers. In terms of the UIF, Honorable Chairperson, 2023-24, we have 32 kiosks with service delivery capabilities, which will be deployed to strategic areas across the country. 11 service delivery buses across the 9 provinces will be provided. And free Wi-Fi has already been rolled out to all our 126 labor centers in the country. So a mobile app as part of the service delivery, a mobile app and a USSD are in the process of being rolled out. The U-filing system online platform will be improved. All ABSA clients can now generate their UIF completed bank forms at all ABSA ATMs. The UIF has referred COVID terrorist matters to the Fusion Center for Criminal Investigation and Prosecution, as per what the minister alluded to earlier. And these details and the financial breakdown, therefore, are also available at our disposals to share, should any member want. The SEE has a capacity of employing 3,000 people with disabilities, and that can be achieved. This means, honorable members, that 3,000 people will be off the burden of social grants and to make a substantial contribution to the productive economic output of our country. We continue to appeal to all the departments to support the services offered by the SEEs. There is a significant growth and achievement in the number of companies supported by the business turnaround and recovery of productivity SA, contrary to what Honorable Denner was saying earlier on. One of the key highlights underpinning this outstanding achievement is because of the resolution that made it mandatory for every business that received TERS assistance to implement the business turnaround and recovery program. I must say this is one of the best practice lessons introduced during the pandemic, and there is a very interesting collaboration between Productivity SA and the SEE.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
I'm pleading,
Deputy
honorable
Minister.
members, that please support this budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Honorable Kwankwa.
Unotshe intombi kaNtoshe ngamngeni phansi kwentaba kaNdoda ngeke siyixhase lento. Minister,
Honorable Kwankwa.
oh, sorry. Chairperson, thank you very much. My apologies, I forgot to unmute myself. I apologize. Ndingunotshe intombi kaNtoshe ngqamngeni phantsi kwentaba kaNdoda angeke siyichase le report. Qala minister kwale industry uthetha ngayo ye-banking engafuna utshintsha. Ndandibhangela phaa 10 years ago ndingu-chairperson we-Employment Equity Forum abazange bafuna ukutshintsha. Baxola unixhatha bathathe babeke abantu abamnyama ngaphambili, tellers and inquiries, senior positions be reserved primarily for abantu abamhlophe. Okwesibini, niyayazi ukuthi kwi-restaurant industry noba ufuna uba ngu-security officer for an example eMzantsi Afrika, uyayazi ukuthi apha baqesha abantu abamnyama abangengobalapha aba-here illegally and undocumented, abafuni nobabhatala ii-salaries ngendlela eyiyo, bababhatala ii-salary, ii-wages ngemvlophu kuba bafuna ubonakala ukuthi baqesha abantu. Le department andiqondi ukuthi yenza ngokwaneleyo ukudila naloo problem. Kuba lo rhulumente wasentshona Koloni ngakumbi angeke ayihoye kuba kaloku incedisana noosomashishini babo ababancedisana imali xa kufika unyulo ukuthi bavele bathini bakwazi ukuthi ba-exploit abantu bakuthi baseAfrika abaphuwa. Okwesithathu, enye issue ekufuneka niyijongile minister has to do with the fact that sinabantwana abaninzi abagredayo ezikolweni apha. Simane sibhiyoza sibetha imilozi benxibe zidanga besithini bafike bazongaqesheki kuba kaloku ezi entities zimhlophe azifuni uqesha abantwana bakuthi abangenamava bazivele zikhetha ukuxoka zithi bangamavila-voco vuka kuvuthiwe kuba bengafuni ubabhatala imali eyiyo. Unyasha Menawu owayephangela e-Sea Point in 2016 wafika wa-encounter an experience where umuntu omhlophe owayelawula i-restaurant wathi akabaqeshi abantu abamnyama baseMzantsi Afrika kuba bangamavila engenabungqina boko, nto nje efuna uexploita abantu baseAfrika. One of the issues that we must deal with. The other issue is we can talk about a national budget where we're saying we're providing 5.2 billion rands tax relief to support economic recovery and incentives for youth employment rather. But if asizuzijonga ezi incentives ukuthi zisebenza njani in the private sector and whether ziyasetyenziswa ukuthi kuqeshwe abantu, sizaba nengxaki yokuthi abantu bathi bezaba batsha bangaqeshwa kwezi ndawo, including this thing of saying there's a high demand of digital skills globally. Meanwhile, the country is faced with a digital skills gap. Ifanele ukuthi zonke ezi entities karhulumente, including ne-departments, ziyancedisana nokuvala this digital skills gap, upskilling and reskilling young people in order to achieve digital transformation, innovation, and to improve employment figures in the country in general. Bekuthethwa minister ngokuthi the department ngakumbi agriculture nalapha kule Western Cape mane kuthethwa kamnandi ngayo sibe sixhathwa. In recent years, agriculture has seen an increase in child labor, with a total of 70%
Thank
of
you
all
very much.
children. Hey, conspiracy.
Finish.
Thank you.
The Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, House Chairperson. You know, I heard the minister say measures that are being put in place is to protect the interest of employees. I heard the chairperson saying we are a very caring government and we care about our workers. Well, let me say to you, Minister, and I think you agreed with me the other day, look at the plight of the police officers in this country. They die every day. Is getting gunned down in this country. And what do they get? From the 13 rand that they got danger allowance, for 32 years, they're now getting 23 rand a day. Now let us ask ourselves in this house, which one of us in this house will send our children on that front line every single day, putting their lives in danger for 13 rand? but you never hear anybody here raising concerns about the plight of them. And you rightfully the other day, Minister, spoke about these frontline workers. They don't get RDP houses. They do not qualify for bank finance. They now live in shacks. And yet we think it's fine, it's okay. The question is, how is it not one of us feel the pain of losing these police officers who are out there only to protect us and our families, and we do absolutely nothing about it? So I think it's time that we start looking at the plight of our employees. Now, we have a very high unemployment rate in the country, let us be honest about it. But Minister, I raised this with you before, and I want to say again, how is it that some of us are so selective even when we visit businesses to see whether they comply or not? There are those in this country, and a very large number of them, that are paying the workers 60 rand a day at the expense of local labor. Now, unless we equal that playing field, our people are not going to find jobs. And what we need is to get out of our offices and go visit these businesses, and you'll be shocked as to what you will find is actually happening there on the ground. Then the other problem we have with the high unemployment rate, Minister, and I think it's something we need to look at. With such a high unemployment rate, why should any one person get 2 salaries from the state? You want to be a teacher and you want to be a counselor. How can you do justice to any one of those jobs? Being a counselor is a full-time job as far as I'm concerned. Being a teacher is a full-time job. Which one are you neglecting? Both of them. But yet we have such a high unemployment rate in this country. We need to look at that, and we need to change that if we want to employ. I'll go to the next point. If I have time, I can't see the clock here. Minister, I said this before and I want to say it again. Did you know you will never find one local barber in the entire country? Why are foreigners leaving their countries and coming here and want to cut your hair? It must be a lucrative business. So I think if you take every ward, and we've got about 4,500, and just train 4 of them in each ward, you would have created just under 20,000 jobs in this country. It's a fact. These people are earning a lot of money to leave their entire family and their neighborhood and come back here. So there is opportunities that we can actually create if we want to pay attention to it and go that extra mile. The problem we have is that we want to just attack each other. We want to look at the weaknesses and the faults. We don't want to find, and these things are there. What I'm saying is reality on the ground. The inspectors that we have in these labor departments. If you look at Goodwood, I've got a complaint today. Minister, the queues and queues, these people cannot be attended to. The man says he has to get up at 12 o'clock at night to go and stand in the queue to be attended to, and it can't happen, it's not happening. This is the plight of some of our people, but rather than finding solutions, we are talking about that. The other thing is this, I don't know if I have time. Could we not ask ourselves one very important question, Minister?
Unfortunately, Honorable Member.
The National Freedom Party will support this budget vote. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, what's your point of order?
This room is freezing, it's cold. Can this be attended to? It's cold.
Can it be attended to? Thank you very much. Can it be attended to, honorable members? Honorable. Yeah, it will be attended to, honorable members. The Honorable Mtabe, you are.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, the Minister and the Deputy Minister present here in the House, and Ministers and Deputy Ministers on the platform, Honorable Members. Chairperson, we are in the election mood. You hear the members, the way they talk. What I've heard from the opposition benches thus far reminds me of someone who once said, when intelligence is silent in the face of screaming ignorance, then ignorance wins because it controls the narrative. Firstly, I need to remind everybody here and the country at large, it's me, that as the ANC, we have never waited for things to happen. We have always made things to happen. As the ANC, we have always been, and we continue to be solution-orientated. We never had luxury of complaining, pointing fingers, and apportioning blame. We have always been charged with the task of changing South Africa. The 1994 democratic breakthrough came about as a result of the ANC working together with all other formations as we make things happen and ensuring that each challenge or problem meets its solution. The aim has always been and continues to be converting each and every achievement or milestone into a platform on which to build from. I'm saying all this, Chairperson, because so many things. The first one, that the labor laws that we formulated, there are those who are fighting tooth and nail that they must be scrapped. Most of the time, the DA baffles us because on the one hand, they project themselves as darling of the South African 1996 Constitution. On the other hand, they oppose laws that get formulated, premised on the very same Constitution. Chairperson, there was a time in this country where there was a Native Regulation Act of 1911. There are people in this house who want us to reverse and go back to those days, and we are refusing, Chair, the DA in particular. We are refusing, Chair, because the ANC and its alliance partners consciously fought for equality, fairness. You heard when the DA speaker was here, is fighting for the enactment of the amendments to the Equity Act. Employment Equity Act, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, the National Minimum Wage. When we talk of the National Minimum Wage, he says we are encouraging disinvestment. These are laws that are practical translation of South African Constitution of the 1996. Our hard-won, constitutionally enshrined labor laws are aimed at ending high levels of exploitation, cruelty, unfair labor practice in the labor market, which are still rife, by the way. If for whatever reason you think I'm being economical with the truth, just go to CCMA offices and bargaining council across the country to witness what I'm talking about. So protective labor laws relating to transformation of all levels of South African workplaces remain very much relevant. We have labor laws that protect the rights of everyone in the workplace and promote and advance economic development, fair labor practices, equality, safety, easy access to justice, peace, democracy, social development, and transformation. We certainly do not believe that our labor laws are too rigid, as they are benchmarked against International Labour Organization's convention that are there to guide all member states on key principles and fundamentals to be observed. These laws were assessed by the ILO and were found to be very flexible. We live in a country that has triple challenges, which are unemployment, inequality, and poverty. Unemployment in this country is deep-seated. It is systemic. It is born. Earlier I spoke of the ANC that is solution-orientated. So in looking for the solutions of the unemployment that I've already characterized, we have to employ multi-pronged approach. Contrary to some of us, that this singular approach of adding employment in the name of the department does not discuss all other interventions from different angles. It is illusionary, Chairperson, to the extreme to believe that by having a department with an attachment to the name employment, then such a department must on its own drop the unemployment rate down to 0. There is no way that such a department would build a factory that will absorb people with no employment. It is a department that will continue to be part of those that make contribution to dealing with unemployment crisis, as the minister earlier outlined. The department and its entities continue to ensure that there are job preservations and creation. Even those entities that may be struggling on one side, on the other side, they do make contributions in job preservations and creation. That is the reason why we will not agree that transactional entities must be outsourced to the private sector, because that would mark the end of all good side about them. We'll continue to look at issues of repositioning, restructuring, and make both UIF and the compensation fund effective and efficient, but remaining public assets that contributes in the development of the state. The ANC is a solution orientated, and we always look at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. So the interventions that we have discussed and decided on in the portfolio committee to dealing with the compensation fund and the UIF shall be processed until their logical conclusion. The ANC supports this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable Hendricks will join us virtually. The Honourable Hendricks. Apparently, he is not there. The Honourable Bakri. Honourable Bakri.
Thank you, Chairperson. 29 wasted years, said Mr. Vavi, representing the largest trade union in South Africa. I personally go much further, 29 destructive years. The department
No sound, Chairperson, on virtual.
There is no sound, Chairperson, on the virtual platform.
Chairperson, on a point of order, I see we are muted up there. Again.
Yes, Chair, we've got the sound of silence.
Take care of that, please. Can you take care of that?
It's fine now.
Okay, just hold, Mr. Honourable Bracken. Can you just hold it? Let's get this done.
I'll start again. Start my clock again.
There are no bonuses, Mr.
A
Bracken.
DA government at the end of next year will proceed to restructure the department to ensure service delivery. During the past 3 years, I literally had to respond to 12,000 complaints, stretching from complaints from the compensation fund to just about every other entity within the department, Even ANC councillors have referred their queries to me because they have not been able to get responses from the dysfunctional and duplicitous department. It is the height of cheek for the Minister of Employment and Labour to even try and get funding for some of his inactive entities. Productivity SA has carefully taken South Africa to the second lowest productivity rung in the world. We have spent millions and millions on Productivity SA to enable the rapid slide downhill. The 3 decades of destruction have left over 11 million citizens actively looking for jobs. The situation has carefully orchestrated by the dubious Department of the Employment and Labour. When a new DA government is sworn in next year, it will mean a lot of hard work to regularize the situation and reverse the scorched earth policy practiced by this very department. When John F. Kennedy took office, he said, "When we got into office, the thing that surprised me the most was that things were as bad as they've been saying they were." Despite this, the Democratic Alliance has faith in the system and the citizens of South Africa. Your vote is vital. We cannot have business as usual. The DA will ensure that the department receives an urgent overhaul. Like Alice through the looking glass, the minister wants the voters in South Africa to pretend all is well. It is not. You can only pretend when deliberating the budget of the compensation fund. They did not even make a presentation to the committee, likewise with the UIF. Productivity SA is supposed to promote a culture of productivity at the workplace and prevent job losses. The opposite is occurring, all the while costing taxpayers millions of rands. When the ANC finds itself in a hole, they keep digging. What does the minister suggest? He suggests give more and more to Productivity SA and reduce the budget for the CCMA. Who wrote the minister's script? John Cleese? The minister certainly reminds me of Manuel from Faulty Towers. I know nothing. Business in South Africa today gets no help whatsoever from the Department of Employment and Labour. In fact, the department is colloquially known as the handbrake to job creation. The recent SONA at last identified small business as job creator. The SONA also identified red tape as a hindrance. The Department of Employment and Labour should be the entity that takes up those challenges. But no, even a call from the president goes unanswered. People in South Africa have all experienced the dysfunctionality of the Department of Employment and Labour. Long queues, no payments, refusal to reply, rude officials, wrong calculations. I can go on and on. The experience is real and ongoing. It will not change under an ANC-led government. The experience of 3 decades of wasted and destroyed lives for the better. The Western Province government is a great example. The voters need to imagine a better life for all. Their single vote will make a difference. Your vote for the DA will put you in control to ensure a DA government answers your plea for more employment and everything that goes with it. The DA knows that the harsh labor laws are killing jobs. The DA will enable you to empower yourself. Less government, more jobs, true freedom. The DA has the formula for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable Nonsela is the next speaker.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister, honorable members and distinguished guests. We're meeting here today to add our voice as a committee in support of the budget that has been presented by Honorable Minister and as well as the report by Honorable Chairperson. The budget, The budget reflects a strategic and well-balanced approach to addressing key priorities creation and preservation, employment policy, decent work, health and safety. In celebrating the 111 years of its existence, the African National Congress has declared this year the year for decisive action to advance the people's interest and renew our movement. This budget allocation represents a transformative investment in our nation's future and response to the clarion call for an unceasing, comprehensive response to the interest of the people and by extension, the renewal of our movement. House Chair, furthermore, we need just to take a leaf from the NDP, which basically serves as a blueprint for our nation's long-term development. It envisions South Africa that is prosperous, equitable, and inclusive. To achieve these goals, we must prioritize investment in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and skills development. By allocating adequate resources to these areas, we can empower our citizens, reduce inequality, and build a strong foundation for future generations. House Chair, Honorable Kado has indicated here that we have unleashed an avalanche of unemployment as a movement, as an ANC-led government. He is ignorant of the 300 years of looting, plunder, and destruction of our heritage. He is in fact also ignorant of the fact that what he is in fact pointing us as an example is in fact a good example that shows an entrenchment of inequality in Western Cape. It is unfortunate, House Chair, that we will not be taking a leave and just going to Khayelitsha and many other townships, where you would see in real life what in fact DA represents in our communities. House Chair, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan emphasizes the need for targeted investment in key sectors to stimulate growth and create job opportunities, aligning our budgetary priorities with the objectives outlined in the EWRP. In this, we can drive sustainable economic development and create conducive investment and innovation environment. Our government was elected with a resounding mandate to address the pressing challenges facing our society. We pledge to invest in education, create jobs, eradicate poverty, and provide essential services to all South Africans. To fulfill these commitments, we must allocate sufficient funds to education and skills training programs, job creation initiatives, social welfare programs, and infrastructure. The current medium-term strategy has been characterized by implementation of highly critical policy intervention with regard to reconfiguration of our labor market. The introduction, as already covered by Honorable Minister and Honorable Chair, of the national minimum wage and the amendments to the COIDA and the Employment Equity Acts was the highlight of this period and has set a far wider scope in terms of coverage of the vulnerable sectors such as domestic workers for occupational injuries and the powers now vested with the minister to set employment equity targets. Taken together, these signify important milestones in the ongoing struggle for improved working conditions, equity, and pursuance of the decent work agenda. Allocating funding for pathway management and partnerships with institutions demonstrate our government's unwavering commitment to equipping individuals with the necessary skills and knowledge to enhance their employability. By investing in education and skills development, we are tackling the root cause of unemployment and empowering individuals to access meaningful employment opportunities. The budget allocation paves the way for a brighter future where our citizens possess the expertise needed to thrive in an ever-evolving job market. Again, House Chair, we must also make a reference here to Honorable Kondo, a colleague. We work together very, very nicely in the committee, Honorable Kondo. But I'm not patronizing Listen, I'm not patronizing. There is no collapse of UIF. There is no record of that. What we know about UIF is that UIF has been not to account for a very huge budget, which is evidence across. Everybody has this information. Nobody stands up and challenges the failure of this gentleman who was supposed to appear in Germany. The
Chair, we don't hear anything.
Chair.
Chairperson, we lost connectivity from your side.
Chairperson, we don't have any connectivity.
Can we be heard from the chamber? We cannot hear a word. Colleagues on the platform, is it only me or do you also not hear from the?
I think it's all of us. I'll send a message to the table.
All of us, we can.
Members from
We must convene our own meeting.
where Baggett, Kahle, honorable members, wait. Honorable Telezi, everything is in order now. It will continue. Qhubeka, Nontsela.
In terms of economic distress, it is our duty to provide social insurance benefits and support to both workers and distressed businesses. The budget allocation for the Unemployment Insurance Fund and the Temporary Employer-Employee Relief Schemes showcases our commitment to mitigating the impact of economic challenges and promoting stability in the labor market. By allocating funds to assist businesses in retaining their employees and providing short-term unemployment benefits, we are safeguarding the livelihoods of our citizens and ensuring a resilient economy. Our government firmly believes in evidence-based policy making, and the allocation of resources for research reports and publication on priority sectors reflect this commitment. By disseminating research findings, we can make informed decisions and identify areas of growth, Honorable Kato, and develop targeted interventions to address economic challenges effectively. This budget allocation empowers us to shape policies that will drive sustainable economic development and create an environment conducive to job creation. We welcome the planned support through Productivity South Africa, an entity of the department which goes a long ways towards ensuring that there is no conflict of pursuance of high productivity, competitiveness, and job creation and retention. All medium and micro enterprises are the backbone of our economy, and supporting them is crucial for fostering a favorable business environment. The budget allocation for competitiveness improvement services signifies our commitment to nurturing entrepreneurship and enabling these enterprises to thrive. by providing them with the necessary tools and resources to enhance their competitiveness. We promote economic growth, job creation, and sustainable development. This budget allocation is an investment in the engine of our economy. It is important that a dual labor market is not created. That is with regard to how we deal with issue of foreign economic migrants. That it is important that a dual labor market is not created in the country through exploitation of both South Africans and foreign nationals, as those in labor-intensive jobs are paid below the national minimum wage or in a differential wage scale, as has been witnessed with truck drivers. This creates conflicts which takes the form of xenophobic conflict, but whose essence lies in the attempt by the employers to pay lower wages with longer working hours to foreign nationals and even to South Africans to ensure exploitation of cheap labor. This occurs while the cost of living is increasing for the working class. This is not legal as it does not adhere to the legislation and basic conditions of employment. It is also a safety hazard in the case of truck drivers. The law must be enforced to protect workers, and it is important that the inspectorate deal with this matter, as there is only one labor market based on current legislation and a dual labor market exploiting workers with local or foreign.
Thank you very much,
is not.
Honourable Member.
Thank you.
The Honourable, the Minister of Employment and Labour will close the debate.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, let's just for a moment pause to remember the genesis of the amendment regarding the domestic workers. Miss Sylvia Bongi Mahlangu was a domestic worker in the private home in Pretoria for 22 years. I don't know who was the employer. She sadly drowned in the pool of her employer on the 31st of March, 2012. Like all domestic workers, she was unconstitutionally excluded from the definition of an employee in our labor laws, and therefore was not ordinarily eligible for compensation from the fund. In this country, Chairperson, for centuries, domestic workers have given up their lives to bring up your children, children of other people, to maintain your homes. Sometimes we're treating them like animals. They will cook, you'll refuse to even sit with them on the table, you'll give them scraps. These are the black workers. It was never fair, and they usually worked for long hours. They were excluded from the provision of our labor laws. As the department, we have welcomed the action taken by Ms. Mahlangu's family, supported by the domestic workers organization, the unions you are opposing, taking the matter all the way to the Constitutional Court. We never even opposed that because we knew what it meant. That is why today we trust that the family of Ms. Mahlangu may derive solace and comfort from the fact that even in her premature demise, she brought justice to all domestic workers. That's the essence of this. I've listened carefully. All political parties, led by Comrade Dunjwa of the ruling party, the ANC, they've raised serious concerns about the underperformance in certain aspects of the two funds. And I accept the challenge or the challenges because I'm not denialist. I've talked about these problems. I've talked about the program on dealing with this. We've been to the portfolio committee. We will still come back when we are summoned or to come and present our interventions. And it means, or even if it means, Chairperson and honorable members, you call us every 3 months to monitor us on what we are implementing. We are ready for that. Because we are not denialists. Here. Akbar Denner. Ek is verbaas man. Hier. Ek denk Akbar Bahrain when he says when the DA takes over, then the man is in the drumland. He's dreaming to be a government next year. It's just cheap political talk. But here is an issue I wanted to raise. This is an issue I wanted to raise. I must just correct one thing before that. The budget which the figure I referred to is a figure before transfers. I mean, after transfers. The total figure indeed is 4 billion. That's what I can credit you about. Just that addition, Honorable Kato. But to come and say the so-called Liberation Party, it's overboard. In fact, no, it's an insult to the South African people because we have been too nice to you. There will come a time when you will regret with this resistance. You will regret. Because we have been too nice. Because we chose peace instead of war. And what you are trying to do now, you are forcing us to be more radical. No, that's what I'm telling you. You can't. Today, what we are enjoying is what was brought by the ANC. Now you come and tell us we're the so-called Liberation Party. We will not accept that. There will come a time our people,
honorable members,
our people
order, please,
have
order.
been too tolerant on many issues, including the issues of the land and this empowerment we're talking about. I don't know what you are saying. If you're a black person still defending the DA, you are like a rented black, a rented dark. If you're a black person where the DA is opposing every transformation, then you don't know what you are representing. You don't know where you are coming from. We will take into consideration. No, the issue of jobs is about transformation, it's about transforming the industry. It's about transforming what you are the means of production which you don't want to transform.
Minister, can you take a seat, please? What's your point of order, honorable member?
Rising on rule
You can take a seat, honorable minister.
I'm rising on Rule
Honorable Minister,
85.
you can take your seat, please. Yes,
And
Honorable
Chairperson, I want to bring it under your attention for serious consideration what the Minister now said on this platform on the basis of accusing members of a particular race of the Democratic Alliance as being of a particular nature through their membership of a political party in representing the people of South Africa in the political party, the Democratic Alliance. It is not
The minister is right.
I
There's no
sugar
order there.
better when no minister right.
Honorable members, please, on the virtual platform, please, mute.
I therefore request, Chairperson, that you consider my objection upon listening and scrutinizing the words of the Minister and acting accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Honorable
Let's
member.
cartel yini.
Honorable Chair, I've been threatened
Honorable
by
Dodwa.
that member pointing at me. Can he please withdraw? The member of the Democratic Alliance.
He can't. Honorable Dodwa, he can't. Honorable members, but he can't withdraw a finger, Honorable Dodwa. Is that possible? That is impossible. Honorable Minister, you can continue.
Chair, before the minister, my hand is up.
Honorable Letsia, I can see it. What's your point of
No,
order,
thank you.
Honorable Letsia?
No, thank you very much, Chair. Please note the hands on the. But my point of order, Chair, was to the busboy who's speaking on behalf of the kitchen girls and garden boys there. Is he mandated to do so?
Honorable Letsia, that's not a point of order. Thank you very much. You can continue, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mandated to defend the rights of all the workers. And I just want to say, we've taken the issues we're raising, the two funds, and I know that some of the members of SCOP, including the Chair, Honorable Ade, they are also looking at us. They are hungry for us on some of these issues of the two funds.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Tobias, Honorable Tandi Tobias, please mute. Minister.
But in terms of defending the track record of the progressive legislation in this country, I can't say it more than what Comrade Mdabe has said. And everybody is there to see what the workers have benefited and what the workers are benefiting.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
Chair.
Honorable Minister. Honorable members, members are reminded that the debate on Statistics South Africa budget vote will take place at 16:45 in the Good Hope Chamber, and the debate on Office of the Chief Justice budget vote will take place at 16:45 in Committee Room M46, which is this one. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.